World on 3news.com. I am Alfred Ocansey. Tonight, President Akufo-Addo's State of the Nation address has reignited questions whether the economy has been mismanaged or it's been wrecked by COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine war. Economists will be joining us, in fact, sharing their thoughts on this. And what is your own assessment of the state of the economy? We'll get into that. The military swoop in a Sherman after the alleged murder of a soldier has been widely condemned by many. But the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces remains quiet. President Akufo-Addo failed to talk about it today in the State of the Nation address. We'll tell you a bit more into that as the world celebrates women. On International Women's Day, we talk to two key personalities, the former Attorney General, Betty Idrisu, and the Vice President of the ECOWAS Commission will also be speaking on Ghana tonight. We have more on these as well, together with your thoughts and views and comments and opinions. Let's hear from you. The hashtag is Ghana Tonight on Facebook and Twitter. Let's get talking. I am Alfred Ocansey. Let's settle for Ghana Briefs. Member of Parliament for the Ashaman constituency in the Greater Accra region, Ernest Henry Nogbe, has disclosed 150 out of the 184 persons who were arrested in the military swoop have been released. The remaining 34 are in military custody. The 184 were arrested in connection with the murder of a 22-year-old soldier in the area.
Out of the 184, 150 have been released. As we speak now, we have about 34 left with the military, which they state that they are still screening them. So by close of tomorrow, we will know whatever outcome may come out from the screening. I just met that 150, including their family. As I speak with you, I'm still at that meeting, calming situations down, and then assuring them that we are going to take charge of the situation, and also one of them should take the law into their hands.
Family of the late Sheriff Imoro, the 22-year-old soldier who was allegedly murdered in Ashaman, is awaiting an autopsy report from the 37 military hospital to aid in investigations. According to the deceased family, he will be laid to rest tomorrow, March 9, at the military cemetery in Accra.
We are yet waiting for the autopsy to be complete. Once we are assured, fully assured, tomorrow morning by 8, we will be here to take care of the body, bath him, and then dress him up, and then hand him over to the military to continue their process.
A Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament is considering a probe into the military invasion of Ashaman in an attempt to fish out persons suspected to have murdered the soldier. Ophelia Mensah-Hayford is the Vice Chair of the Interior and Defense Committee of Parliament.
I'm calling for calm on both sides, because the youth within Ashaman can also rise and say, hey, we will also not set for us to be treated this way, and it can escalate into something else. Let's allow the security agencies or the mandated agency to take it up.
President Akufo-Addo has been defending strongly his government's borrowing and the country's increasing debt portfolio. In the State of the Nation address to Parliament, touting an unmatched development in the history of the Fourth Republic, the president, who is seeking an IMF bailout and yet to make significant inroads in getting the money, says he has been prudent in using state resources.
Mr. Speaker, let me state emphatically that we have not been reckless in borrowing and in spending. It is worth noting that the debts we're serving were not only contracted during the period of this administration.
The National Democratic Congress has asked its sitting members of parliament to suspend campaigning activities in their constituencies in order to marshal support to fight against the Electoral Commission's proposed constitutional instrument for election 2024. NDC and its MPs are against the decision by the EC to make the Ghana card the sole identity document to register to vote in the next general elections. A statement by the General Secretary of the NDC, Fifi Fiavikwete, said the decision was adopted by its functional executive committee on Tuesday, March 7.
Mr. Speaker, let me state emphatically that we have not been reckless in borrowing and in spending. It is worth noting that the debts we're serving were not only contracted during the period of this administration. Mr. Speaker, we'll spend money on things that are urgent, to build roads.
So that's President Akufo-Addo there. Now, as to whether that last point he made, that the monies have been spent on things that are urgent, eventually we have to get to know the details of it. But he's been defending his government's expenditure since his assumption of office in 2017. He says his government has been accountable with regard to how it spends monies borrowed and then the internal revenue as well generated. You see, accountability of our money and the money he has borrowed in our name, which we are all going to pay, can be accounted for in many ways. For instance, by Parliament demanding accountability, which is a key pillar and ingredient in any functioning democracy for us, because they're supposed to serve as an oversight over the executive. Plus, for instance, the projects that we see with our eyes and the evidence of other expenditure government has spent our money on. Those are the ways of accountability that we're talking about. So if you ask people raising questions as to whether the monies have been spent well, it's because there's a disconnect as to what government is saying and what we as a people are also seeing. But take a look at this and follow me closely. This was our public debt as of November 2022, according to the data from the Bank of Ghana. That's approximately 575 billion cedis. That's 93.5% of the total GDP. That's a total of all goods and services produced in this country. Our debt takes 93.5% of it. Now, here's a breakdown of it, okay? And look at this. This is in cedi terms, okay? The domestic, the external is represented in this black side of this pie chart and the domestic in the red chart. So look at this, 382.7 billion, that's the external component of our debt, and about 194.7 billion. In dollar terms, this is it. That's $29.2 billion and 14.7 billion, that is the domestic, which government has gone through the path of restructuring, but we've seen all the issues that came up with it. But note that all of this money, this 575 billion, not all of it was actually cash borrowed or money borrowed by government, because about 37% depreciation of the cedi to the dollar within the year 2022 was one of the main causative factors that caused a significant jump in the cedi component of the external debt, this particular area. Because we borrowed in dollars, when the cedi depreciates, the debt also goes up. Not because government has gone to borrow, but because our cedi is losing value, government has to find more money to pay, so the debt goes up. But when we go back to 2016, because the president talks about since he assumed office, he's been prudent and he's been accountable. Take a look at our total debt, as a total public debt, and our debt to GDP as of 2016, so that we have a clear understanding, comparative analysis, okay? In 2016, it's about 122 billion. At the time, when we had not done the rebasing of our GDP, it was 56.9%. Debt to GDP. Now, look at this. In 2022, November, it's gone up to 575 billion. That's 93.5% of our GDP. So between 2016 and, well, say 2017, when the president assumed office, to 2022 November, there's a difference of about 453 billion cedis approximately, right? So, and as I indicated, some of it is as a result of the cedi losing value. That's how come we've had to see this figure go up that much. So question is there enough evidence of what this money has been used for? Can you, or have you and I as citizens been accounted to transparently and properly? And has Parliament also demanded full accountability for this on our behalf? We can only say that this government has done something if we see it. And we cannot also say it has done nothing because since assuming office in 2010, we've seen some projects going on. But question is, juxtapose the projects and other verifiable expenditure with the amount of resources allocated to government. Is it commensurate? Does it square off? That is where the likes of Parliament that have to exercise oversight responsibility over the executive and how they spend our money is called to question. So stay with me. We'll get into a lot more of the President has been talking about the COVID expenditure as well. The Auditor General has done his job. Public Accounts Committee has to do its job for and on behalf of the Ghanaian people, especially because of the leaked audio about some NPP member talking about COVID funds that they used for campaigning and so on. Those things we need to get closure. And then ask questions whether the President's position that COVID funds were not misused is actually the case. We'll go back to our chairman as well, because a number of things happened. The President said a number of things, but he was silent on the happenings in Ashaman as the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. A lawyer is joining me in studio right after this, and we'll find out if there's any legal redress that the victims of the military brutalities in Ashaman yesterday can seek. We'll be back shortly after this quick break. This is Ghana Tonight.
Win your share of over 3 million Ghana cedis worth of prizes whenever you buy a bottle of Guinness, Star, or Origin. Dial *1000# to submit the code under the crown, and you can win cash, free airtime, and drinks. So, look sharp. This advert is FDA approved. Drink responsibly, not for sale to persons under the age of 18 years. Not recommended for pregnant women.
Ghana for your friend me na dede. Semijina ha na eye Franco television. Papa, I'm dia begaso no. Na me gusu amidi ho dance e chiro. Sawasi hotels, offices, schools, apartments, eye Franco television. Ababawa, abrantie, ope TV di abawo dem a. Your sizes bebre wo ho. Your 24 inches wo ho, your 32 wo ho, your 43 wo ho, your 55 and akese 65 inches. Way now den Franco Trading Enterprise a television papa and the border from ahimfie.
Everybody knows Acrobato. And if you know Acrobato, it means you know M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic is my pillar. Let's hear what others are saying about M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. Who will be careful M-Punch one?
Chesena me ankasa me period na say problems wom ntina ma wo ho idea ma me papa chesena nya asem ketewa na me coin point no mo hwe me modam no mo hwe bibia na so mo meduro me fire no ene ma won kra mienu kofro kwa na mkwan mu a eba head everything yourself me ma me no adwodwo eda ho a wontumi nante ene ne ko end point o mama nunu a ene ne ho idea watimi asori anante. That's end point for you of Acrobato. Hello hey ohwehwe what che okay a free bra wo di end point wa dance am me call you no me Johnson se man enkoyie e person na maye mre nyina na magina sebe ma na me be fie for there e ho na nyina jaresa. You heard everything. I have secret. M-Punch is my secret. M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. I'm free.
You are a major stakeholder in nation building. Your voice matters. Start your day with us.
Welcome back to Ghana Tonight. We are live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. And keep your comments coming in. Lots of you asking the questions of the State of the Nation address. Member of Parliament for the Ashaman constituency in the Greater Accra region, NS Henry Nogbe, he has actually disclosed that 150 out of the 184 persons who were arrested in the military swoop have been released. Now, the remaining 34, we understand, are in military custody. Now, the 184 were arrested in connection with the murder of the 22-year-old soldier over the weekend. He spoke earlier on News 360, but take a listen to this.
Out of the 184, 150 have been released. As we speak now, we have about 34 left with the military, which they state that they are still screening them. So by close of tomorrow, we will know whatever outcome may come out from the screening. So by and large, they have released 150. I just met that 150, including their family. As I speak with you, I'm still at that meeting, calming situations down, and then assuring them that we are going to take charge of the situation and also provide some leadership for them, so none of them should take the law into their hands. What is intriguing now is that the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, in his State of the Nation address, was not able to mention or to state a paragraph or even a line to console the bereaved family of the deceased soldier and also to condemn the attack on innocent citizens of Ashaman yesterday. I see that as very disappointing about the president. It doesn't mean that the president is so insensitive that whatever happened yesterday in Ashaman, he wanted to pay deaf ears to it. That is what we are disappointed in. But by and large, calm has returned to Ashaman, and we are all in a stable condition.
Well, so that's the MP giving us updates of what's happened. And some of the residents actually reached out to us, indicating that they had seen some military vehicles in Ashaman. This was about 5 hours ago. So, yes, that's according to the residents, that there were some military personnel sighted there. But this is just to refresh our minds why many were expecting the president to talk about both the killing, alleged killing of this military officer, and the brutalities that members of the general public who have not been identified as being the culprits had to suffer at the hands of the military yesterday. But you take a look at this.
Around somewhere, they were beating some people. And I started hearing a knock from the main door.
Yeah.
I don't even know how they managed to enter. So when they entered, they broke this door. They dragged me out and started beating me. They started asking me whether I know Moro. I don't even know the guy. I've not seen the guy before. Even the day he was killed, I just heard the rumors around. I didn't even go there to see the guy.
About 4 o'clock.
I woke up around 4 a.m. to use the washroom. When I was returning, my brother told me there are soldiers around beating people.
I was in bed when my mom called me that my brother is beaten outside. So I quickly rushed out, and then I didn't see my brother. So I moved my car to go and look for him. So apparently on the phone with my mom, she said the military guys came to the house, chased him to the house and beat him right in front of our door. My mom was inside. She couldn't come out because they asked her not to come out. So I quickly have to move out and look for my brother. Then I found him somewhere, and I had to just take him to the hospital. So I asked him what happened. He says the military guys just beat him up. That's a piece of some of the broken roots they used to beat people around. At the moment, my mom is very traumatized. Her BP is out of the roof. She can't hold it. She can't hold it. To see her son beaten and she can't come out to do anything about it. It's quite traumatizing for her. So at the moment, she's sleeping and crying at the same time.
I thought they were armed robbers. I got to know they were military men after I got out. I was told to follow them till we got to the roadside. Then I realized there were lots of people there and they were abusing us.
Well, so those are some of the victims of the military invasion of Ashaiman yesterday. Oliver Bakavomawo is private legal practitioner. He's also the convener for the Fix the Country movement. He's with us in the studio. Thank you, so Bakavomawo, for joining us this evening. So, and it's still in the State of the Nation address. You were expecting the president to talk about this. Why?
I mean, in many respects, I think constitutionally, we've agreed that when you have a president who is head of state, whoever the person is doubles as commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. We're in a time of critical national conversations about the role of the Ghana Army and what is done in our communities. But also importantly, a young man has lost his life. A military official who has lost his life under circumstances which do not befit the kind of national image we have of ourselves. I think it is important of a president who has showed no hesitation in tweeting about deaths of people abroad. George Floyd, being an example, would keep mum and shut up about the death of a military officer. I think it's very unfortunate. Especially as I understand now, he's not even reached out to the family or spoken to anybody in the family. I think he doesn't show leadership. And I'm very disappointed that in a moment as the national address, State of the Nation address, he failed to address the issue. But also critically, we are having a conversation about the role and conduct of the military.
So for you, to the extent that, well, he's talked about what's happened in other countries. I mean, you made reference to George Floyd and the murder.
Yeah.
You were expecting that something that's happened in this country, he would capture in the State of the Nation. The State of the Nation address.
So, one of the things we need to be able to understand about what is happening currently is that it's not only a topical issue, but in the past 3 years, there have been at least 10 incidents of military persons going into communities and brutalizing people.
Over the last 3 years?
Over the last 3 years. If you go
incidents.
Back, yes. And, I mean, I'm talking about the Jura, I'm talking about Wa, I'm talking about the Chiman, I'm talking about Somanya, Boku. So, all these incidents have almost a repetitive nature, and it's become a normalized experience of our democracy that military persons are able to jump onto the streets and misconduct themselves in this manner. Everybody is questioning, the voice and the wisdom of political actors in being able to restrain the military when they do these things. So I think that in addressing the nation on this particular time, in this moment, it is a failure of leadership to not mention it and to address it squarely with the nation.
I see, but you see, I spoke to the Deputy Defense Minister yesterday on the show, and I know you followed it quite closely. He said that this is a sanctioned operation by the top command, in fact, the hierarchy of the military.
One of the things which is critical to have, and with all due respect, I'm still holding my breath and believing that the Deputy Minister is going out on a limb and is not speaking on behalf of the government. Because if it is, I think we are in bigger trouble.
He's a Deputy Defense Minister.
Yes, he hasn't spoken, he doesn't speak with authority, he doesn't speak in a way, with a level of maturity that the conversations we need to have
What exactly do you mean, exactly?
What I mean is that we are having a critical conversation about the safety of our democracy to suggest to the majority of Ghanaians that the military high command, without regard to the authority of the commander-in-chief, without regard to the political institutions we have in this country, can deploy military persons onto our streets to deploy both aerial support and also ground forces onto the streets into our communities in a time when war has not been declared. I think it's suggesting that there's undermining the democratic institutions in a way that I don't think he's paying attention to. So I am hoping at least I was hoping that the commander-in-chief himself, given the opportunity on a big stage like Parliament, will be able to speak frankly to the issues, and he failed to do that. And I think we are poorer for it, to be honest.
What does the president's silence on this matter tell you?
I mean, for me, there are two things at play here. That the impunity that we are seeing from the military is something that is sanctioned from the highest up.
That's the
first feeling I get. The other one is equally scary. which is this idea that political office holders are so frightened of the military that even when they misbehave themselves, they are not able to speak squarely to the issue. Then it means that we haven't been able to retire brutality and violence in our democracy that we tried to do in 1992. That undermines people's confidence and faith in the Fourth Republic. And I think that as a president who, for many years, was at the forefront of demanding a return to democracy, he's made a poor job of securing that democracy. If anything at all, he's brought us to a brink where we have to be much more fearful of what could happen to the Fourth Republic.
And you see, this is not the first time. You talk about, for instance, when the Major Mahama was murdered. We saw this, they went to Denchorobasi, the military on their own, rounded a number of people up. We've seen this, about 184 people were rounded up yesterday, 150 have been released, 34 are being held from what we understand. What does the law say about instances like this?
First of all, the law is clear that the military's role has nothing to do with domestic law enforcement. They have no such role. Their interventions in domestic affairs must be sanctioned with the authority of the Commander-in-Chief. The Constitution says regarding the military that they are in charge of external affairs and that they can be deployed by the Commander-in-Chief in issues of national development. Now, in the past, we've had instances where we have used them in joint police and military operations to secure law enforcement, on issues of law enforcement. But in all those instances, it has always been made clear that the police take the operational command, and the military is supposed to provide support. Now, the conversations we're having now is the military taking the law into their own hands. And when they're taking the law into their own hands, it means implicitly that they are breaking the law. And I know that Professor Apije Etua, for instance, has talked about how he is surprised that an IGP who, for instance, wrote 7 pages of letter to the British High Commissioner talking about influence and whatnot, has not been able to speak clearly to assert the jurisdictional sphere and autonomy of the police in investigating these issues. A lot of people have suggested that the reason why the military continue to do this is because of an absence of faith in the police institution. Well, join the club. So many citizens have faced issues within our democracy where they have complained about police conduct or police misconduct. A lot of the times when we criticize the police, we do so in expectation that they will improve their services to us. Not an invitation for citizens to take the law into their own hands. And so much more, if citizens cannot do this, the idea that vigilantism is reserved for the military, persons who are supposed to be disciplined in the way in which they conduct themselves, for some reason they lose all that discipline when they engage civilian populations. And I think that is completely abhorrent and inhuman, to say the least. But in times like this, particularly when we know that the military have no power under our laws to go into communities to arrest anybody at all, to go into the communities to purport to conduct their own intelligence-led operation, either to investigate or to pick up people. They have no power of arrest.
Well, they are holding 34 people in custody from what the MP is saying.
Vis-a-vis the law, that's kidnapping. Now, that's kidnapping. That's kidnapping. Let's be clear on this. Our law says that the police and then private citizens can arrest. Let's assume that in getting into those communities, they're acting as private citizens who are arresting people for crime committed. But the law is clear that the only instances where private citizens can effect citizens' arrest is where persons are in the process of committing a crime. And once they do so, they must immediately hand over the persons to a nearest police station. There's no law or coverage for them keeping the persons in their home or within any of the barracks they have. That is kidnapping citizens in the broad daylight of our democracy. And I don't think that any of our democratic institutions or the voices of conscience in this country should countenance this or be timid in rebuking the military for what they have done. Now, if the fear is that because the military wield guns, we should cower in our ability to speak truth to power, then I think we are losing it as a nation. I have only respect for persons who derive the authority from law and not from the gun. And I think that we all have to be able to speak clearly and concisely to the military for what they have done. I think we all sat through as a nation through the reconciliation years. And we all promised ourselves that never again. This is happening right in front of us. And how we respond to it will be tomorrow will be the judge of it. And I don't want to be able to sleep. I'm not going to sleep and see such violations happen in our democracy and keep quiet about it.
But you see, as established, but earlier we got to know that the police, when this incident first happened, the police actually took up investigation. the murder of this soldier. We said the police had initiated investigations already, even before the military invasion yesterday. I want us to then establish that, and then also now the military now taking matters into their own hands, sort of, to try and seek justice or find the perpetrators of this crime on their colleague by themselves when the police is already investigating. I mean, what does the law say in these instances?
So let's be clear. You're correct. That information that I also have is that the police had picked up a couple of suspects even prior to the military going into the community. Now, I listened to the honorable member, Honorable Nogwe for Sherman, where he was talking about his understanding was that the military were looking to enter into the communities on 7th March. Perhaps the significance of the day made them defer it to the next day. Now, if the police have already arrested individuals and continuing investigations, there's no indication about the deficiency of the police action in this case. The military then going into the community suggests that what they went there to do was revenge, was to beat power.
Well, they said that's not what they sought to do. This is in the statement that they issued, which has been deleted the last time we checked.
You know, I don't expect that they were going to admit that this is what they did, in fact. But their actions demonstrate that this is what it is. If it quacks like a duck, you call it a duck. They went in there to brutalize people. They bumped into people's homes, dragged them out, and beat them up. They lined them onto the street, made them roll in mud, and lashed them on our streets. In our democracy, this is what they did. They did so only for the purposes of revenge. Now, in the process, they kidnapped 184 citizens. And then they're claiming by that same statement that this was intelligence-led. No intelligence-led operation would lead you to gather 184 citizens at random and release 150 of them. On what basis were those detained to begin with? Now, they're continuing to hold 34 citizens still. I am continuing to urge them that if they have any respect for the remnants of this democracy, if they have any respect for themselves, even if the commander-in-chief refuses to act, that they release those individuals promptly. Now, myself, we're going to be writing to them tomorrow because we have taken up the charge and cause to provide legal representation to all the victims involved.
You're going to provide legal representation?
Absolutely.
To the victims of the brutality?
To all the victims. We have made our doors open. We've put out our numbers there. Our volunteers from tomorrow through Saturday are going to be in the communities, reaching out to every individual who was injured, who was attacked, to reach out to us and get legal representation.
So what's the legal redress that these persons, we've been showing a number of them on television, can resort to in a situation like this?
So the same thing that happened, for instance, with Ejura, that I provided legal representation to the families and they got compensation, that we are going to make every attempt to sue the Ghana Armed Forces.
We're going to sue the Ghana
Armed Forces for what they have done. But beyond that, that is individual attempts to seek redress for this. There's a collective responsibility on the state to be able to provide justice to the individuals affected, which is by ensuring that those who did this do not go scot-free, that they are punished for their actions. And it is important that the Attorney General takes the lead in ensuring that this is done. Because we cannot countenance that and let people walk scot-free. If not, this is not a regime which is based on the rule of law. So privately, we are going to provide that legal support to individuals. Everybody who is attacked, anybody who was dragged out of their homes, anybody who was kidnapped, subsequently released, any encounter with the military, any form of encounter with the military.
That's in Ashaman.
In Ashaman.
Okay.
We'll be providing that legal representation for them to sue. And we are inviting persons to reach out.
I see. So, well, that's just for it. And I need to also put out the caution and apologize for the graphic images put out earlier. But this just to bring you to clear reality of what some of the residents had to deal with in Ashaman. So that's, you're also beyond this asking that heads must roll. I mean, people must be sacked.
You know,
are you asking?
It is important that in times of grave brutality like this, we make our law speak loud and clear. That the national soul of this country is restored. And that can happen in many ways. One of them is particularly prosecuting the individuals involved. But also, we are demanding the resignation of the entire military high command.
The entire military high command.
Because they've misconducted themselves and showed themselves incompetent to lead the military in a time of a democracy.
And when they have misconducted,
yes, that the president is competent to demand for them to place their resignation before his death. It's not the only country that this has happened. So we are demanding that if they see themselves, and in fact they have misconducted themselves, that show that they do not have what it takes, whether it's the credibility, the moral integrity to be able to lead the Ghana Armed Forces in the time of a democracy, that they step aside. And particularly, we are calling on civilized and moderate elements of the military to lead the conversation for reform within the Ghana Armed Forces themselves. Because this is about restoring the dignity and respect for the Ghana Armed Forces, which now is in tatters. For that conversation to be had, I think that the military itself needs to take the role in leading that conversation and ensuring that reform happens, and that the commander-in-chief also wakes up and remembers at least that he's an individual who's been elected, that he wakes up and remembers that he has...
You're talking about the president?
Yes, I'm talking about the president, that he has the mandate of the entire population to act in difficult times. The cowardice is showing that it's not befitting of the role that he occupies.
Oliver Bakavomawo, thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate
for coming. He is a convener of the Fix the Country movement. He's a private legal practitioner himself and is indicated, together with his team, providing legal services for the victims of the military brutalities in Ashaiman. So that's just to it. We have a number of you who've been interacting with, so you know how to reach him. But the former president, John Mahama, has also issued a statement on this, and that's what you see there. You find that also on 3news.com. You get the details of it. It's deeply saddened by the death of one of our soldiers at such a young age in Ashaiman, gives details, and then also including providing commensurate compensation for all persons affected, and then also asking for some investigation into the matter. So that's what's actually happened now and how things are playing out on this particular issue. So this is Ghana Tonight. And remember, it's all part of the State of Nation address because, as Oliver was saying, expecting the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, the President, to speak about this. Other matters that the President talked about at the State of Nation address in fulfillment of that constitutional mandate, he's been defending strongly his government's borrowing and the country's increasing debt portfolio. In the State of the Nation address earlier today, he gave the details. But for you out there, we hit the streets to interact with the Ghanaian people. What is your own assessment of the state of the nation as against what the president said? Take a look.
Currently, prices of goods and services have really risen. Apart from that, we are having cost of living, which is so high, water bill, light bill, prices of goods and services so risen. At the end of the day, it must translate into good living. But this is the case where we are not having good living. What the president really is saying doesn't really translate on what's on the ground. The cost of borrowing is so high, but it doesn't really translate into what really is on the picture.
The minority are playing their role as a political party, which to me, they are right. And they are the only person who can put the government on track. You will bear witness me that there are developmental projects going on here and there. Overheads are being constructed, roads are being constructed, schools, hospitals, and there. But I don't think what the minority said is 100% true.
The system is very hard because things are not working. Because this time, Charlie, when even you are working here, it'll pay you like 1,500 or 2,000. You'll pick a car, you come to work. Charlie, things are hard. So it's not easy at all. We, the youth, we are suffering very much.
But also the Ghanaian people also talking about their own assessment of the state of the nation right now as against what the president said. Now, we've got a number of reactions in Parliament as well, which we'll bring to you shortly. But connecting with us on Zoom right now is Kweku Rickett Hagan, is a member of Parliament for Cape Coast South constituency. He's a former Deputy Finance Minister. Thank you so much for joining us on Ghana Tonight. First of all, the President is warded off this allegation and your criticism that he has borrowed and spent recklessly. Says that cannot be the case. Honorable Rickett Hagan.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and good evening to your viewers. Before I start, can I take this opportunity to wish all women happy International, Women's Day. I pray and hope that we will continue to support our women and make a concerted effort to promote women in all walks of life.
Right.
Yeah, well, the president, as you rightly said, came to Parliament today to fulfill his constitutional mandate based on Article 67 of our Constitution, that a president come to Parliament to address members and the nation on the state of our nation. And a lot of the things the president said, you would probably expect him to say that. But then, as you know, we hold a different view on that. We believe that we are where we are as a result of the recklessness, wasteful expenditure of this government, over borrowing, which has brought us to where we are today. The president is obviously disputing that, but the numbers are there to show. We wouldn't be where we are today if we have managed this economy well. We wouldn't be where we are today if we have not been reckless. We wouldn't be where we are today if we have not overborrowed. So, sometimes you think the president is probably on a different planet with a different Ghana, where things are completely different in that Ghana than the one we live in. So, there's a lot of things that obviously the debate will start tomorrow, and we will be challenging the president on a lot of things that he said. Some of them that we thought were actually inaccurate, inaccuracies in some of the facts that he was given. But the president has obviously become the kind of president who is basically clearing, his appointees. That is why we call him a clearing agent. Seems to be clearing his appointees on the things that they have done. The COVID issue is still on investigation, but the president, the audit and all that. But the president is, again, clearing people of no wrongdoing. And that is not helpful.
But you see, that's
we are where we are today is as a result of all the wrong things that this government has done, from policy right now to implementation.
You see,
and that's where we are today.
And that's why I call in you, Parliament, as well, because per the Constitution, as you're questioning the president's own diagnosis and his verdict about borrowing and spending recklessly, for Parliament, have you also exercised the oversight role in checking the executive's spending and borrowing? And what's your verdict as well? For instance, on the COVID-19 funds, which he says nothing untoward was done.
You clearly know that we never built a hospital as it happened in other countries for the COVID. So not a single hospital was built on the COVID. Even going for vaccination became a mess, where the money for the vaccination ended up with a Arab businessman who was the middleman for this, which is also still on the investigation, and both the finance minister and the health minister are being held responsible for that. He talks about giving free water for how long? You talk about doing free food for how long? The food lasted for a week or two. So they couldn't have spent all the monies that they claim they have spent on these things that they did. Obviously, the president or the government did its best to handle the COVID as best as they could. But we were fortunate, not to have been affected to the same extent that other countries actually suffered. So if you look at the impact on the COVID, both on our health and on the economy, it wasn't as bad as it happened in other countries. And they cannot say that it's because of the management of the COVID is why things did not get that bad. We were lucky in many ways. And as a result of that, the effort that we made were not as bad as it happened in other countries. But the amount of money that we spent in making that limited effort, that's not really, reconcile the impact the COVID.
I see. So, as established your point, how do you intend to, I mean, I'm talking about you and Parliament, intend to also bring the counterfacts to prove that indeed what the president said about the COVID and the borrowing is indeed not the case?
Well, of course, I mean, there has to be accountability. Whenever you spend a taxpayer's money or money borrowed for the taxpayer to pay, you will have to be accountable to the taxpayer who will be paying for this, long after the MPP government is gone. Therefore, the government that will have to come after will have to investigate the debt that they will inherit. And some of these monies or the money spent. So, of course, President Mahama is right to say that, we will have to, if this government doesn't do a thorough job in investigating where the COVID money has gone, future president or future government should do that, because they will continue to pay this debt long into the future. Again, let me tell you how we will challenge things. The president keeps talking about how things were so rosy, in 2019, 2020, before the COVID and other things, came. Yes, some of the results were not completely the doings of the government. For instance, in 2017, when the economy started picking up, after we have left office, it is as a result of things that were put in place by the previous government that resulted in the gains that we were having. It was as a result of the previous government going into IMF program, and then they came at the tail end of it to complete the program. So we had basically set up the foundation for this economy to take off. So some of the good things that happened were as a result of things that NDC government had already done, and they came to take the credit of it. Secondly, some of the things that they were, some of the numbers, the economic numbers that they were putting out there were actually inaccurate, and we are challenging the deficit numbers that they were telling us that were less than 5% were actually inaccurate, and we had challenged it. When the deficit was over 7%, they were trying to stay within the Fiscal Responsibility Act by telling us that it was below 5%. Right. And we clearly knew that those numbers were not right. And if you remember, many of us were talking about numbers being cooked. So it is like building your house with straw.
And then also all the questions that will come to it. But I really appreciate it. Because this State of Nation address, Honorable Ketegan, is going to be a subject of debate in Parliament. So thank you for giving the pointers and how you intend to challenge this. And he's a member of Parliament for the Cape Coast South constituency. Also, a former Deputy Finance Minister, Kweku Ketegan. Thank you so much for joining us on Ghana Tonight. Today is International Women's Day. United Nations observance of this day is under the theme Digital, that is innovation and technology for all and gender equality. Recognizes and celebrates the women and girls who are championing the advancement of transformative technology and digital education, and talk about women breaking the glass ceiling and leading the way. Let's go on to Zoom now. There's a former Attorney General and Minister of Justice, in fact, Ghana's first female Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Betty Modi Driso, is joining us. Thank you so much, Madam, for staying up this late to join us on Ghana Tonight. Apart from celebrating today, Happy Women's Day to you as well, what measures, in your view, do you expect to be put in place to improve equity and inclusiveness, especially for women in this country? Okay. Can you hear me?
Let me congratulate all of us Ghanaian women on International Women's Day 2023. I thank God that I'm alive to see this. I have been participating in International Women's Day for many years now. And I'm so happy that I have been able to join your program today. Celebration. We women, we should celebrate because we have come a long way. and we have definitely seen changes. I have seen changes in my own lifetime, and I have brought about changes in some of the things that I have done, mainly in the legal field, and I like to think in the political field, i.e., I like to think that offering myself up for leadership, I have been able to inspire leadership as well in the younger generation, especially today. When I look at my own party, the NDC, and the really wonderful numbers we are seeing in younger women coming up as offering themselves up for parliamentary candidates, it's wonderful. And I want to continue to encourage them. This theme is about gender, is about equity,
Indeed.
it's about digitization, it's about technology, and it's acknowledging the era in which we live, the era of working from home, the era in which, by which women have really been, enabled in a way to also partake fully of the workplace environment from their home, but not acknowledging the fact that women are more even disadvantaged in their home when they have young children, when they have domestic chores and domestic duties, and they are still perceived of as by their husbands or partners or fathers or so on as being there to serve them. So that is one aspect. The other aspect is of online harassment, which has become rampant, and for which we haven't had enough in terms of equalization in the law.
Right.
Because I don't think online harassment happens a lot to men. I am
does.
sure that I'm confident that it
does.
happens
Maybe
more to women, and
against women. Yes.
women are unable to get legal redress for this. But I'm talking about every day when you are bullied and harassed online by your male employees or by others who have been able to take advantage of the digitization and technology. So I think it's an aspect we should look at. We should look at our laws, amending our laws in order to be able to see to that and plug in that lacuna. And I think we need to do some education with the police, because it is criminal to bully or harass somebody sexually online by mere reason of their sex. And I think it's only one of many inequities that we are still suffering under our legal infrastructure, even as we are looking to equalize ourselves in this era of digitization, i.e., the question of the laws. I keep saying that it was one of my proudest days as a woman lawyer when I was Ghana's first female Attorney General, to be able to stand before Parliament and lay the intestate amendment to the intestate succession law, and also lay the bill for the property rights of spouses upon dissolution of marriage, which is a constitutional obligation of Parliament. 12 years later, nothing has been done.
Right.
Not enough has been done. The bills have not been passed. And even though the Speaker of Parliament has assured us, the Right Honourable Speaker has assured us that they will be looked at, we are wondering now where we are getting to. We are looking at the police and seeing how under-resourced they are in terms of domestic violence, and how we can help the police to be able to take it forward.
Wonderful. And that's exactly why we celebrate you, as well as other many, many women who are leading today as well. Appreciate you and all you've done, Madam Betty Modi Drisu. But let's cross borders now. And Madam Damtien Chichimbija is the Vice President of the ECOWAS Commission. My colleague Kamala Kluche sat with her and talked about the International Women's Day today as well. Take a look.
that responsibility or a role that you need to play that should serve as a role model for the younger generation, especially the younger girls. What have you seen as the VP of the ECOWAS Commission regarding what the challenges of the girl child is on the continent as a whole and also within the sub-region?
The most depressing, I would say, would be whenever there's instability. The instability, as we have seen it recently in our sub-region, women in general, both adult and young girls and children, tend to pay the highest tribute whenever there is instability. So for me, that has been very depressing, and looking at a lot of these young girls that are out of school nowadays, that don't really have any prospects for the future. So I would like to be able to use my current position, to use this platform that I have to to bring about stability in the sub-region, to make women participate as agents of peace, and for us to be able to nurture, because women naturally have a nurturing role in the household, but to be able to nurture the men around us, to nurture our communities, our partners, to tone down and be able to bring about peace in our communities. Because if peace prevails, it gives the opportunity to every single one of us, and especially us women, to be able to carry on with our activities, raising our families, and giving an education to our children. So I believe women are at a disadvantage whenever there's political turmoil, whenever there's instability in our societies. And for girls, it also boils down to them not having access to proper education, and being left behind, and not having access to opportunities as young men and young men and men in general would have. So, for me, I think that's as part of my mandate, I need to work harder to bring other women together, for us to be able to bring about a change for our continent, for our respective communities, first and foremost.
Do you see the political will?
Well, there's never been a political will to make space at the table for anyone, be it a minority, which we are in this specific case. But it's up to us as women to embark on that journey, to make sure we carry along other women with us, and also engage with men, bring in men as our partners to support us in this initiative. And I think there's a tendency in the sub-region where things are changing slowly, where leaders are realizing that they need to bring women on board, because we bring a different perspective into the political realm, and it's important that we are given a voice as well. So it's changing, but it's not changing fast enough.
When you go around, or you see pictures or stories on TV that young girls as old as 9, 10 to 15 years, teens, are not able to go to school just because they are in that time of the month, and it's either a taboo, or they feel ashamed to go to school because, one, they've sold themselves and are not able to get whatever they need to get in terms of education, because the biological challenges that comes to them. How do you feel?
As a woman, I'm saddened by that. I think there's an education that one needs to do within our communities, for people to understand that it's a natural process that women undergo, starting from a certain age, and it's through that process that we are able to bring life. I mean, to carry children and give life, and every human being came to this life through that process. as well. So we need to educate young girls not to be ashamed, but also we need to educate them on how to handle themselves and how to attend to one another if another young lady is in that situation where she maybe stained her outfit, and not to stigmatize them. And
well, so that's the Vice President of the ECOWAS Commission. On that note, we say a happy International Women's Day to all women leading us in various aspects of our lives. Happy International Women's Day to you. On behalf of the rest of the team, as always, join us same time tomorrow on Ghana Tonight. I am Alfred Ocansey. Have a good night.